Hello, friends. I think it's the May 16th, 2020 today. I'm quite sure of the year. I'm not sure of the day, but I think it is May 16th. Driving through Iowa on Old Highway 9 and took some really interesting photos of newly sprouted corn coming up against this very classically Iowa black soil. Of course, a lot of guys are doing, combination of no-till and minimum till, so there's more residue. But in the ones that are old school, which in some cases old school isn't really a bad thing. But anyway, that's when there are a few fields where it's just quite stunning contrast. It's very dark and gray today and raining, so it almost seems to enhance the contrast between these little green little corn sprouts and the dark soil. I wish I could flash the photos to show you. I have a site on Facebook called Meadowlark Meanderings. It's, I guess you'd call it a photo ministry site, and I'll post one of the pictures I took on there at some point today. Anyway, I think I'm trying to figure out, for example, it should be really clear to, and I'm going to use the word thinking, to thinking people, that are awake, or at least somewhat awake, and are engaged in the day-to-day thing we call life. Okay, engaged on some level and in some way. But it should be clear to those people that by now we've been at this. Trump made the disaster declaration on Friday the 13th of all things. I don't think that's accidental, but as I always say, that's another video. So he made that declaration. So we've been at this for 2 months, and it doesn't seem to be getting any saner. In some ways, things seem to be more draconian. I know there are restaurants and a few places that are sort of opening up. We'll have to stay tuned on that to see where this goes. They've promised, when I say they, we're talking about the mainstream media, World Health Organization, WHO, United Nations, and the CDC with fascist Fauci leading the charge, and Mr. Trumpmeister, basically, like I said, making this declaration on March 13th, approving, rubber stamping this whole New World Order, and it is a New World Order. There's no other way that you can parse this, no other way you can explain it, no other way you can describe it, when the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which I believe is a part of the United Nations, or if not a part of it, affiliated with it, I don't really care, meaning it's obviously a global organization, and the Center for Disease Control, which is a private corporation. It is not a not-for-profit government federal agency. If I'm wrong about that, correct me, please. I don't think I am, but leaving that aside, anyway, it's definitely it's a New World Order global operation, and Trump has rubber-stamped it, sent it right on through, and he's last week I was watching a great video by a guy that I like a lot, although he's got some issues. I'd like to visit with him someday about that, but basically, I think it was about a week ago that Trump said, well, the coronavirus is just going to go away, without any vaccine. And apparently yesterday or the day before, and I need to verify this, but I'm quite sure it's true because several sources that I respect, reported it as such, that Trump is talking about getting the military to help to deliver the vaccines. So a week ago or whenever that was, well, it's just going to go away without vaccines. And so what this guy rightly points out, his name is Wiki Joe, what he rightly points out is that this has been a classical psychological operation from the beginning, and Trump is an agent. He's their top agent. He's delivering the goods. Like Wiki Joe said, this guy has done a marvelous job of pulling off the psychological operation to traumatize people with all these fearful things, and also, like he said, it's like a cat that plays with a mouse and more or less tortures it before it kills it and eats it. Great metaphor for you people, thinking people, to be thinking about. he said, just as a cat will do that with a mouse, he said, this is what the government has been doing. And again, Trump is the master of this. Well, he said about maybe by Easter we can get things opened up again. And then they delay the date, and that date comes, and they delay it. So they give people this hope that these draconian measures that are nothing less than Orwellian, and I'll go beyond that because I like to look at things from a biblical reference, very revelation based, meaning, where you've got a couple people basically ruling the world with the mark in the right hand and the forehead, number 666. Those two people are the Antichrist and the false prophet working hand in glove, and they are the leaders of this New World Order. So if anybody doubts that this is now, clearly it's not about the virus whatsoever. Tony Fauci, CDC guy, that has said a lot of things where he stretches the truth or just outright lies. He wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine, I might have mentioned this in an earlier video, but it bears repeating, writes in the New England Journal of Medicine, supposedly the most prestigious peer-reviewed medical journal in the country. So he writes there in February, I don't know if they've removed it by now, I don't know how they would, but I guess they can do anything. But anyway, wrote there in February that when it's all said and done, that the C virus, I'm calling it the C virus, he wrote it in a different way, but same thing. But when it's all said and done, we're going to see this as somewhat of a severe seasonal flu outbreak. And he compared it to the outbreaks of 67 and 69. But he said with a mortality rate, I'm going to say this slowly so it sinks in, of 0.1%. Not 1%, 0.1%. And then right after that, he said, that's compared to MERS and SARS and H1N1, and there's another one there. He said that had death rates of like 8, 9, 10%, and he might have even said 20% for one of them, but leave out the 20, I don't care. I don't care if my memory, in other words, I don't care. I'm clearly making the point that we've been through far worse outbreaks than this, and obviously the world didn't stop in its tracks. Businesses didn't shut down. You didn't have these draconian measures of face masks and quarantining and shelter in place. So clearly my point being is that this C virus is not basically like many people described it, and I just gave you Tony Fauci's comment on it, and he's going to be obviously more, on the fear side of things, but even he and his sort of, assuming he has some professional medical ethics about him, couldn't quite bring himself to, write about this as if though this was a 10 or 20% mortality rate, okay? And so what a lot of people have been saying, this is basically, like Fauci said, a seasonal flu outbreak. And I believe that many of the so-called deaths to the C virus, many of them have been because of underlying conditions and bronchitis and pneumonia and influenza A and B, things that the country and world deal with every year. Lose a lot of elderly people that are severely compromised in their health, and like I said, have one or more underlying serious health conditions, and these are all being labeled as COVID. And as I understand it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, hospitals are being paid by, I don't know if it's the government, Center for Disease Control, to basically, if they're in doubt about the diagnosis or if they don't think the test is quite accurate, but they feel that the person has symptoms of the so-called C virus, which basically turn out to be symptoms similar to the flu, but that to put that on their death, when they die, to put it on their death certificate that they died of C virus, and apparently they get a lot of money for everyone that they tag and bag with the C virus. So I guess if you're not aware by now that this thing is a New World Order takedown of sovereign governments with constitutions, basically Bill Gates, who's the second biggest contributor to the World Health Organization, and the WHO and the United Nations and Mr. Trump are basically telling you how to live your life. There was no democratic process involved, no debate, no argument, nothing. In fact, it's even discouraged for people to have any opinion other than what the mainstream media and government has been telling you from the beginning, which has been one big giant lie. I'm Stevie from South Dakota. Please, people, either start to think or keep thinking, because this one is, well, really, I don't know if you do need to think about this one. This one's a no-brainer, so maybe you don't need to think. But give it a shot. You'll be amazed at where your thoughts take you if you're intellectually honest and want to know the truth, as opposed to basically just be drinking the mainstream media government Kool-Aid and being a mouthpiece or an organ for their lying propaganda, New World Order, takedown of the nations. Again, Stevie from South Dakota. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.